After serving 3 years in prison, I'm finally free. But my heart feels like it's trapped in an even darker cell. I'm staring at a message from Daisy on my phone, and each word stings. Felix, I'm glad you're out. I can't see you now. I'm pregnant, and I have to be careful. Mark is worried too. Maybe some other time we can come visit you. Mark, Daisy's ex-boyfriend. While I took the fall for her and spent years in prison, they got together. So what was everything I did worth? Standing in our empty wedding house, I'm feeling dizzy. I bought this place with every dime I had before going to prison, thinking it would be our happy home after the wedding. But that was just a fantasy. Most of the stuff is cleared out, but traces of life remain. The wall has dozens of photos of Daisy and Mark looking cozy on their trips. There they are by the mountains, by the lake, even on a cruise. It's like they're flaunting every moment they shared. A vase holds wilted champagne roses, Daisy's favorite. The card's still attached, a sign of love for the flowers. The card reads, "May we be each other's love for life." When we first got this place done, Daisy was thrilled about decorating it with things she loved. She dreamed about filling it with plants and cats. I can still feel her arms around my neck, asking if I'd always treat her well. I didn't hesitate. "Of course, you're my love for life." She said I was hers, too. Those words, full of love, still echo. But the first marks in our home are with another man. I head to the balcony, needing air. I struggle to breathe in the room filled with leftover memories. In the balcony's corner sits a small pomegranate plant that I bought 3 years ago. It's the only thing left here that's mine. Sadly, it's dead now, just withered branches remain. I wasn't expecting Daisy's parents to visit first. Surprised to see them at the door, I still managed a polite greeting. They looked at my worn-out face, disapproving and silent. Daisy's dad sat himself on the couch and began speaking. "Felix, we weren't keen on you and Daisy getting engaged initially. You know why? She was set on marrying you despite everything." His words were veiled, but I understood. Our families were close until my company went under when I was in middle school, and my parents. They couldn't take it. They left me only a house, using everything else to pay debts. It left me and Daisy mismatched from the start. He coughed before continuing, "You shouldn't have broken the law. That kind of background is hard for us to accept. And this situation, it's hard on Daisy. She's 8 months pregnant now. We can't make her. You need to move on." I smirked bitterly, staying silent. Daisy's mom jumped in, sharp-tongued and harsh. "Even if Daisy didn't end things, I'd never agree. With your record, you'd stain our name. Felix, we are someone in this town. People talk. I can't have them laughing at us." Her words stung. After treating them like family for years, here they are, burning bridges. Even if they knew I took the fall for Daisy, would they abandon their daughter for me? Of course not. "Don't worry, I won't bother Daisy," I said flatly. "They're here to crush any false hopes, to ensure I cause no trouble." I chose to take the fall. I can't blame Daisy, only myself for trusting the wrong person. Daisy's dad scanned me with doubt. I looked him in the eye, full of sarcasm. "Even if she begged, I wouldn't stay. Who'd want a woman carrying another man's child? It's dirty." "You." Daisy's mom jabbed a finger at me, shaking with anger. "You better keep your word. Stay away from Daisy. You were clingy before. Don't be." I opened the door. "Leave. I don't want to see you again." They stormed out. With every look around the house, once full of dreams and happiness, I knew I'd never return here. The thought of the past dwelling with someone else sickened me. I'd list it with an agent and rent a new place for now. As I reached the entrance of the complex, I saw Daisy standing by the road. Her hand was on her belly. For a second, I was unsteady. Her face was familiar, yet she looked different, more serene, motherly. It had been 2 years since I laid eyes on her. In my first year of imprisonment, she visited every couple of months. But after that, nothing. It was obvious, but I was in denial, locked up and refusing to acknowledge. She probably didn't expect me now, her face showing surprise before greeting me. "Felix." Her smile was a bit forced and she spoke without much confidence. "I'm back to find something." Couldn't find it at the new place. Guessing it's here. Really? Coming here all pregnant to look for it yourself? Where's your husband? I couldn't help but taunt with a touch of malice. She laughed awkwardly. He's busy with work. He's managing dozens of people at the company, unlike you. Realizing she slipped, she stopped herself. Why? I croaked, my voice unintentionally hoarse. What? Daisy didn't dare to meet my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? If you wanted to be with him, you could have just told me straightforwardly. Why trample on our feelings like this and insult yourself? She didn't answer me directly, but what she said felt like a heavy blow to my already broken heart. She said, Felix, all these years, I've just seen you as Mark's stand-in. Now that he's back, do you think I still need a stand-in? I looked at her in disbelief. I once thought I liked you. Being with you was more relaxed than with Mark, but it was too relaxed it didn't feel like a relationship. Even if you were holding another woman, I'd feel no jealousy. Do you understand what I mean? I stood there, frozen, incapable of thought. She started talking about what happened after I went to prison. They reunited at a charity auction. When she saw Mark again, she felt a flutter in her heart. She told me that's what being in love really feels like. Mark was back from overseas. He's capable, talented, knows what she needs, and helped her fix up the chaotic company. With him, every day feels new, and his many surprises dazzled her. She emphasized how Mark makes her feel completely different from me. They shared hobbies, goals, and their souls matched perfectly. They were true lovers, soulmates, something the stand-in, couldn't compare to. A deep sadness filled my heart. Finally, standing up, she bowed to me. I'm sorry, Felix, but like my mom said, I don't want my life marked by this, nor to be with a man who's done time. Let's part on good terms. Her words struck a nerve, and I yelled, Didn't I go to prison to take the fall for you? Aren't you afraid of karma? Daisy looked at me with disappointment, pulling a sarcastic smile. But the evidence the police have, it all points to you. If not, why were you the one locked up, not me? I was speechless. Yes, I made that evidence and sent myself to prison. The woman before me felt like a stranger. I remember clearly, 3 years ago, she cried in my arms, confessing her financial fraud. So panic-stricken, so helpless. A month before our engagement, Daisy seemed distracted. During that time, there were inspections from the business office, the tax bureau, and finally the police. As the legal representative of Daisy's company, I was called in twice to assist in the investigation. I thought it was minor, something that would pass once investigated. How could I have known Daisy had not only committed fraud but also tax evasion involving over 50 million? One evening at dinner, she suddenly broke down crying. I thought work was too stressful for her and quickly dropped my chopsticks to console her. She cried loudly, Felix, I'm done for. I messed with the finances, trusting the wrong people. What do I do now? Help me, please. I don't want to go to jail. I'm only 26. If I go to jail, how will I live? What should I do? She sobbed desperately, clutching her chest. I reassured her, don't panic. We'll wait for the investigation results. We can pay the taxes owed and cooperate. Everything will be fine. But she cried even harder. It's too late. It's already too late. At that moment, I didn't understand what she meant by too late. Only after my trial did I realize she hadn't paid the taxes or fines by the deadline given by the tax bureau. It was as if she deserved what she got. Suddenly, she looked grave. If I died, wouldn't that solve everything? I wouldn't have to go to jail. She tried to run towards the balcony, startling me into holding her tight. Daisy, don't worry. I'll take care of it. If it turns bad, I'll bear the consequences for you. This all ended with me turning myself in. I was sentenced to 3 years and had to pay a fine. Daisy was crying her heart out in the courtroom, telling me, Felix, I'll wait for you. No matter how you change, I won't leave you. Recalling all this, I laughed bitterly through tears. Felix, I'm sorry. I'll compensate for the 3 years you served, Daisy said coldly, pulling me out of my reverie. I'll compensate with 2 million. I calculated it based on your previous annual salary of 50,000. Although you only served 3 years, the extra 50,000 is for the years we've known each other. You won't get more, considering I paid a few million in fines for you. Paid my fines? I never imagined such cruel words could come from her lips. Disappointment doesn't even begin to cover what I feel. I sighed deeply. What was the point of dragging this out further? Let's end this with dignity without airing dirty laundry. The 2 million is what I'm owed. Based on my yearly salary back then, that's not less than what I deserved. Okay, make sure the payment is done quickly, I replied. Hearing me, Daisy sneered a bit, showing disappointment. But how she sees me no longer matters. I reminded her, you'd best take everything you need from the house today. I'm planning to sell it. You're selling the house? Daisy looked shocked. Isn't this the place you put so much effort into decorating? She knows how much this house means to me, and she knows how much I want to live with her. I don't know what she was thinking initially. With her financial position, she could easily buy any house. But she chose to live in the one I bought for marriage. What does selling my house have to do with you? I asked back. Daisy's face turned pale, and she couldn't say a word. When I left, Daisy was still standing there, holding her stomach. Even when the taxi I called was far down the road, she stood motionless, looking a bit lonely. I thought about our past. Daisy was the one who confessed first. Daisy and I have known each other since we were kids. My parents and her family were friends back in the day. She always liked to stick around me. After my parents passed away, it was Daisy who got me through the toughest times. Later, she dated Mark, but she didn't seem very happy. They were always arguing or on the verge of breaking up. Whenever she was hurt and crying, she would come to me. Yeah, from that time, I was just a place for her to dump her emotional trash. Suddenly, I felt like I let go. Watching the scenery fly by outside the car window, the heaviness in my heart lifted bit by bit. I chose the wrong person, did the wrong thing, and ended up serving 3 years in prison. What about the mistakes that belong to Daisy? What price will she pay? But within half an hour, I got a call from her. Her voice was weak, trembling, and a bit pleading. Felix, I had a preterm birth. The doctor says it's a difficult delivery. I'm scared and want to see you. Can you come? I didn't reply and hung up the phone. At Daisy's company's new product launch, Daisy stood elegantly on stage in a sleek white suit. She looked a bit fuller, with her face rounder, probably gained some weight during postpartum recovery. After I hung up that call, I also blocked her. With advanced medical facilities today, difficult births can be handled with a C-section. I'm no doctor, can't save her life, and anyway, it's her husband she should turn to, not me. The media did a special interview detailing her entrepreneurial journey. Later, a reporter asked, Daisy, can you share the secret of your success with today's youth? She smiled warmly and waved to a spot in the audience. The camera turned to Mark, who was looking at her with admiration. Daisy brought the microphone to her lips and said, the secret is to have a partner willing to give their all for you. I especially want to thank my husband, Mark, here. Without his support and help, I couldn't have grown from a fragile little girl to who I am today. I want to take this opportunity to say, thank you for being there. I love you. Cheers erupted from the audience. Daisy is radiant and sweet, and Mark's handsome. With their looks, many online have been calling them the most inspiring couple of the year. I quietly exited the news page and took a sip of my energy coffee. In a daze, I thought back to when I helped Daisy start her business. At the beginning of her company, there were only 4 people. Besides Daisy and a finance professional, there were 2 recent graduates. Daisy grew up privileged and inherently cold and proud. She despised the greasy middle-aged men in the business world. So, the company wasn't doing much business then. I watched her little face grow weary, and her once hopeful eyes slowly dim. In the end, I couldn't stand it. I resigned from my newly permanent job. I gave up my career to support her dream. That day, she hugged my neck and said, Felix, it's so good to have you. For those words, I worked hard, drinking to land business deals. After my parents went bankrupt, I learned early on to read people and know how to win favor. I'd bring appropriate gifts during meetings, not too expensive but perfectly suited to the person's interests. When closing deals, to show sincerity, I'd even offer extra profit space to the salespeople. For 2 years, I almost lived in the drinking scene, either driven home by a service or stumbling back myself. Liquor, beer, spirits. My stomach even started bleeding from drinking. Whenever Daisy saw me like that, she'd worry and scold. "If you ruin your health, we won't be able to have kids when we get married." I'd pat her head and smile. "Don't worry, your boyfriend's in great shape. You can test that out." She'd laugh and punch me lightly, tears forming in her eyes. And that's how 2 years passed. The company got more and more orders and its reputation grew. Many manufacturers even started booking with us years in advance for events. Employees grew from just a few to dozens. I built a professional website for the company, detailing the projects we handled, and arranged customer service for online inquiries. We developed professional design, sales, and after-sales teams. I no longer needed to personally go out for business. The third year, which was also the year I went to prison, I returned to the software industry I loved, thinking both Daisy and I would progress toward our planned futures. But who knew? Life's full of surprises. 2 months later, the house sold, and my account had an extra $2 million from Daisy as compensation. Since getting out, I've been sending out resumes nonstop. The companies were much lower in the industry than where I worked before prison. But typically, I'd get cut off in the first round of interviews. Even when interviewing for sales, once they found out I'd served time, they'd politely decline. I felt pretty disheartened. Turns out, life in prison isn't the most hopeless part. It's when you try to rejoin society and realize no one wants to accept you. That's how Daisy's family is. These companies are the same way. Looks like I need to start my own business. I've got some funds saved up. But what can I do? Besides coding, I don't really have any other skills. Maybe it's true that there's always a way. Just when I was worried, I got a call from my college buddy Ken. He asked, "Where have you been these past few years? No one could reach you. You made it big and forgot about us." Huh? I felt a bit awkward, but I told him the truth. I was in some trouble and spent 3 years in prison. Just got out not long ago. There was a long silence, probably shocked by my answer. Finally, he said, "Everyone makes mistakes. Let's not dwell on the past. I called because I wanted to talk to you about a business venture." I was surprised. "You still want to work with me even though I've been to prison?" He raised his voice. "Why would I care? If the prison let you out and the country forgave you, why shouldn't I?" His response caught me off guard. He didn't seem to notice as he excitedly shared his business plans. After about 10 minutes, I heard him take a sip of water. Ken asked, "So what do you think? The plan sounds solid, right? I already have some big clients lined up, so orders are not an issue. I just need a skilled developer like you. I've checked out the software projects you were involved in before, very stable. I've also reached out to 2 other college mates. Believe me, we can make this work." His plan was impressive. It offered more potential than any job at a company. I was still surprised he reached out to me because we weren't that close in college. But then I thought maybe Ken is that turning point person in my life. Ken is ready to start a business. I sent some belongings ahead and brought the important stuff with me on the flight. While waiting to board, I spotted a familiar figure. It was Mark, carrying a woman's handbag, holding a bunch of bags in one hand, and had his arm around a young girl, occasionally fixing her hair. They looked like they were in love. I looked closer, and the girl wasn't Daisy. I couldn't help but laugh. So this is the fresh and exciting love Daisy chased after. That's pretty wild. Enough to give anyone with a weak heart a run for their money. But it's no concern of mine anymore. I boarded the flight to Deep City, ready to leave old memories behind. Life in Deep City was busy yet calm. Before long, I met a woman who changed my life forever. My junior in college, Judy. We graduated from the same school. She was a year below me and Ken. Now she's one of our business partners with tons of work experience and, like Ken, brought clients with her. As for me, all I could contribute was my 200 grand. The first time we met, she was an engineer at a software company, there to discuss a collaboration with me. She tentatively asked, "Excuse me, are you Senior Felix?" I recognized her, too. She had changed a lot since college. More composed, mature, and even more beautiful. Wearing a simple white blouse and a black skirt, The classic office look had a youthful twist on her. Judy, what a coincidence. I extended my hand. Her eyes lit up with excitement as she took my hand. Senior, it's really you. I joked, haven't seen you in years. That little girl I knew has grown up, taking on such important projects. She laughed. Are you trying to say I've gotten old? No, I mean it. Quickly denied. The project discussion went smoothly. We covered everything from tech architecture to development plans, project timelines, software testing, and post-sale support, all within 2 weeks. They were very satisfied and signed the contract on the spot. The night before she headed back, Judy asked me to dinner. We went to this nice little local restaurant with great food and atmosphere. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "Did you marry Daisy?" I was surprised she remembered Daisy. Once during a club event, I brought Daisy, but she stayed just a couple of hours. Feeling awkward, I drank my tea and replied, "We divorced." Judy seemed shocked but quickly adjusted her expression. "I'm sorry." She refilled my cup and said sincerely, "It's okay. I'm still single too, so no judgment here." She smiled, her lips curled slightly. Her clear eyes were intent, making me uneasy, unsure of what to say. So I just drank the tea she poured me. Since then, Judy messaged me almost daily. I'm an adult, I knew what she was hinting at. But I'm aware of my situation. Besides the startup with Ken, I've got nothing. Like Daisy, Judy's got a well-off background. Her folks are in public service. They'd never accept someone like me with a record. I didn't want to hold anyone back, or lie to myself. So I kept my responses polite, choosing a couple of her texts to reply to harmlessly. I figured she'd move on after a while. But 6 months passed, and she didn't stop. Instead, she showed up, upset, demanding answers. It was on Valentine's Day. I was working late, past 9 p.m. Tired, I took off my glasses and headed out the office door. When I got to the lobby on the first floor, I saw a familiar figure. She was wearing a French-style long dress and beige high heels, tiptoeing and peeking inside. When she spotted me, she waved excitedly. Judy? What was she doing here? Could there be an issue with the project, and they sent her over to deal with it? I pondered while I hurried over to her. What's going on? Why are you here so late? Is there a bug in the app or some kind of emergency? I took a deep breath to calm my quickened breath and looked at her anxiously. She frowned at me, a bit displeased. What? I can only come to see you for work, not for other reasons? I was momentarily speechless, not sure how to respond. Seeing my lack of reaction, she sighed softly and complained, "I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day." I was stunned for a moment but quickly caught on. "Let's go, I'll take you to get something to eat." "Sure, let's go to that place from last time." Last time? I squinted, trying to recall, that private kitchen restaurant. Without noticing, she had slipped her arm into mine. As we ate, she told me she had left her old job and planned to stay here to start a business with us. That night, Judy got drunk. Despite my efforts to stop her, she kept downing drink after drink. In the end, she was crying with red-rimmed eyes. She asked, "Felix, why don't you reply to my messages every day?" Feeling a bit guilty, I said, "Well, I did, just been too busy with work to see them." Liar. She downed another drink and slammed the glass onto the table. I remembered the farewell party when I graduated. She had shown up somehow and was also teary-eyed and drinking non-stop. She had said, "Senior, you won't forget me after you graduate, right?" I laughed and replied, "Of course not. We might meet again someday." She raised her glass towards me and said, "Then I wish you and Daisy happiness." Right after, she cried again. People around us were teasing, and I just felt awkward. After graduation, we parted ways, and I didn't see Judy again until we started working together. Now, seeing her like this once more in front of me, I understood her feelings and why she couldn't hold back her tears. But I couldn't change anything. She's amazing, but I'm not right for her. Knowing there's no future, why give her false hope? Judy was swaying drunkenly. I wanted to ask where her hotel was, but she just mumbled, and I couldn't understand her. I rummaged through her bag but didn't find any ID. With no other option, I took her back to my place. I rented a one-bedroom apartment. She slept in my bed, and I had to make do with the couch. She got up to puke twice in the middle of the night, and I was there giving her a warm towel to wipe her face. She seemed surprised to see me, lightly slapped her face and said, "Another dream? Huh." When she went back to the room, she stumbled a bit. I guess my place was different from what she was used to. She tried pushing against the wall. It was oddly cute, so I led her to bed and tucked her in with a light blanket before stepping out. Judy muttered in her sleep, "Felix, you're such a jerk." I paused for a moment, then gently closed the door behind me. After all that, I couldn't sleep, so I sat on the balcony, lost in thought. The city's light pollution was so bad that you couldn't see any stars in the sky. Usually, seeing such a dark sky made me feel lonely, but now I found a kind of peaceful beauty in it. As dawn broke, I finally felt sleepy and dozed off on the lounge chair. I woke up drawn by a delicious aroma, like the breakfast my mom used to make. When I got up, the blanket on me slipped off. Judy must have put it on me. She was busy in the kitchen, with her hair tied up and wearing an apron I rarely used, looking like a little homemaker. Hearing me, she turned and smiled, saying, "You're up. Go freshen up, breakfast is ready." Felt like we were an old married couple. Feeling dazed, I went to the restroom. When I came out, Judy had set the entire breakfast on the table. The small living room with its warm yellow light made her look endlessly gentle. The porridge was still steaming, and the golden pancakes made my mouth water. As I ate, my eyes suddenly misted over. I wanted to cry. It had been so long since I'd tasted the breakfast my mom used to make. Daisy preferred Western breakfasts, and being with her, I learned to bake bread, make sandwiches, fry eggs, and brew coffee. For years, I was the one making breakfast. Judy didn't eat. She rested her elbows on the table, her small hands holding up her face, looking at me tenderly. "How is it? Not bad, right?" I nodded, not trusting my voice, lest it betray the emotion I felt. Suddenly, I missed my parents. I wanted to visit their graves. Judy seemed to sense my thoughts. She said, "I heard your hometown is beautiful in the summer. I'd love to visit." Seeing I was silent, she continued on her own. "I took a vacation, got 8 days off. You should take a break too. I'll let my brother know." "Your brother?" I asked, confused after swallowing a pancake. Feeling guilty, she corrected, "Ken. Ken, brother is what we Northerners call men older than us. Ken and I are the same age, only a year older than her." "Older?" I didn't call her out on it. In no time, she happily said, "Done." No sooner had she spoken than I got a call from Ken. "Felix, there's no major projects lately. Take a few days off, relax." I couldn't even respond before he added, "Even if you don't take time off, you can't come to the office until at least 10 days have passed. But keep your laptop handy in case something urgent comes up." Then he hung up. I looked at the girl in front of me and then at the phone, feeling like she and Ken were hiding something from me. My mind was still a bit foggy even as my feet touched the ground on my way back. The thought of going back home had just popped into my head during breakfast. And now, at 1 a.m., I was already standing on home soil. Next to me was Judy, barely awake and struggling to keep her eyes open. Except for coming back to pay respects each year, it had been 3 years since I last experienced summer here. Still the same stifling heat and humidity. The next day, after visiting my parents' memorial, I took Judy to the mall for some food. I didn't expect to run into Daisy there. She was with her mom, holding the hand of a cute little girl with braided pigtails. Daisy looked fuller, more mature than how I'd seen her in the news. I didn't plan on saying hello. I just turned to leave. But Judy grabbed me and cheerfully called out, "Daisy? What a coincidence." Daisy looked up and froze when she recognized me. Her mom seemed surprised too, and when she saw Judy with me, she sneered, "Oh, showing off the new girlfriend. Huh?" Judy's hand found its way into mine, our fingers intertwining. Her hand was soft and warm, not clammy despite the oppressive summer heat. Felt nice. I couldn't help but smile. Daisy's eyes lingered on our joined hands. When she looked up, her expression was a little flustered. "Wow, what a surprise seeing you two here." Judy nodded. I came with him to pay respects to his parents. Daisy's face went blank for a moment, then darkened. Judy bent down to greet Daisy's little girl, who said in a babyish voice, "Hi, Auntie." Judy's eyes sparkled with affection as she smiled. "Daisy, your daughter is so adorable." Then Judy playfully shot me a look. "We should hurry up. I want a cute daughter too." All I could do was awkwardly smile back. Daisy's expression shifted between us before she snidely remarked, "Who would have thought you two ended up like this?" Judy stood back up and returned to my side, naturally slipping her hand back into mine. She calmly replied, "Exactly, Daisy. I had a crush on him back then, but since you two were together, I just wished you well. Didn't expect you'd divorce. We only got together afterward, so I'm not stealing anyone's partner." She smiled at me, her eyes shining so brightly that I forgot to breathe for a second. Daisy's mom scoffed. "Guess some people just pick up the trash my daughter throws away. Funny how a guy who's been to prison can still find someone who thinks he's a catch. Better watch yourself, young lady, before you wake up crying with regret." Her words hit me like a cold shower, snuffing out any flicker of excitement I had. Yeah, I had been to prison. Judy must have sensed my tension because her fingers tenderly caressed my palm. She looked at Daisy's mom. "He did serve time, but I bet Daisy knows exactly why, right?" Her gaze was sharp and judging. "He took the fall for you, and you just let your family humiliate him?" I was stunned. How did Judy know any of this? Daisy turned pale, barely able to stand as she glared at me, thinking I'd told Judy these things. At this point, there was no need to dodge the issue. I looked Daisy in the eye. "Judy's right. I willingly took the blame for you, and getting dumped was all on me. But is it fair for your family to use my time in prison as an insult?" Daisy was about to lash out, but I cut her off. "Why is your life the only one that matters? Am I just supposed to struggle in the mire? I agreed to an amicable divorce to honor the past decade. You better tell your mom to keep quiet about my past imprisonment. Because if I hear it again, I won't hesitate to take this public. I don't mind going back for falsifying evidence, but everyone will see your true colors." Daisy stared at me in disbelief and stumbled back a few steps, while her mom's face turned all shades of embarrassment. After they left, Judy gave me a purposeful look and said, "That's why you've been avoiding me? Because of your time in jail? I've known for ages." "What?" Her hand still in mine, she repeated, "I said I knew for a long time. I've had people keeping an eye on you. More than one." I was baffled. "Why?" She seemed exasperated, admitting in a whisper, "I just wanted to make sure you were okay. But when you ended up in prison, I checked it out and know you took the rap. And later, I found out about Daisy's affair. So you had your brother reach out to me before I got released to start a business together?" I finished for her. Her face turned red. "How did you know I'd get out early?" I asked, genuinely curious. Her big eyes flickered like a child caught in mischief, and she whispered, "I may have pulled some strings." It was her. No wonder all my petitions for early release went so smoothly. I stared at her in surprise. Suddenly, I remembered something Ken said to me over drinks that night. "Maybe life has some surprises lined up for you, and you just don't know it yet." She is the surprise in my life. "So what's Ken to you, really?" She dragged me into the restaurant and said, "Him? He's just my cousin from my aunt's side. That year, when he said he wanted to start a business, I strongly recommended you to him. That's all." "I see. It's not that life doesn't hold a way out. It's just that I've met my savior. Judy, she's my savior. Why would I keep struggling? She's already taken 99 steps forward. That last one, even if it's over a massive abyss, even if it's a high peak, I'll take it." I grabbed her hand, pulling on mine, wrapped her in an embrace, and kissed her forehead. "Thank you. I love you." The reply was a voice almost choking with emotion. "Felix, you don't know. I love you more." Daisy's epilogue. I've gotten divorced again. When my daughter was 3, Mark cheated with the new intern secretary at my company. He secretly transferred most of our assets, and by the time I realized, he barely had any savings left, and there was debt racked up. That debt was reasonably invested in the company. We both had to bear it. But he had already taken control of the company. If he said it was a loss, it was a loss. I hired a professional lawyer to help me with the case, but unfortunately, I lost. On the day of the divorce, I hit Mark hard with a baseball bat. He didn't dodge. He just looked at me with guilt and said, "If hitting me makes you feel better, I won't fight back, but the divorce will happen for sure." His determination was cruel. I cried. He didn't even console me, just went next door with his new fling and registered their marriage. I stood alone in that empty hall, feeling like a total fool. At that moment, it was like arrows pierced through my heart, because I had once trampled on someone's genuine love. Those who betray true feelings deserve to swallow 1,000 silver needles. Retribution had caught up with me. I believe Mark will get his karma soon too. I used to marry the man who treated me the best in the world. We promised to stay together forever. He spoiled and protected me. I thought my world was complete with him, but material wealth made me swell with pride. Supported by my dad, I started a company with monthly revenues in the 8 figures. Gradually, I couldn't see the value in the few $1,000s he earned working hard. What could that money do? Couldn't even buy me a bag. That was the first time I felt the stark contrast in lifestyles between different classes. Felix couldn't give me everything I wanted, but I couldn't let go of him, nor the years of feelings we shared. If he couldn't provide it, I could earn it myself. I met new friends. One told me that with some simple financial tweaks, I could save millions in taxes in a year, and he had a reliable accountant to recommend. I'd worked with him for 2 years. He seemed trustworthy. I believed him, but just 6 months of fake accounting and I got caught. The Tax Bureau, Commerce Bureau, and the police began investigations one after another. I was so scared I couldn't eat or sleep. Those days, I was in a constant state of anxiety until the deadline to pay taxes and fines passed without me noticing. Just the thought of going to jail made me shake all over, wishing I could disappear. But Felix reassured me, quit his job, and turned in the evidence to confess. I was saved. Yet, he got sentenced to 4 years in prison. I truly felt guilty towards Felix. So, I wanted to make it up to him after he got out. But every time I visited him in jail, seeing his gaunt body in that gray prison uniform was piercing. Watching his once handsome face turn pale, and his straight back become hunched, made it hard to breathe. I hated myself for greed and despised him for sacrificing everything for me, making me feel like a lowlife. I regretted marrying him. If I had only treated him as a big brother next door, he would surely be thriving in his career now. How did he end up in prison? I wanted to escape to avoid revisiting that wrong past. So when I saw Mark, I thought I saw college-era Felix. They were alike yet entirely different. The similarity was in their gentle smiles, like blooming flowers. The difference was Mark always brought endless novelty, while Felix moved cautiously, never letting me take risks. Maybe it was hormones, maybe adrenaline, but I fell deep into feelings for Mark. Until Felix showed up at the door on the day of his release, I realized how much time had really passed, all without a single thought for him. So, I made a quick decision, cutting ties quickly. I filed for divorce from Felix and offered him $2 million in compensation. I thought he'd argue, ask for more, and I'd give it. $2 million was just a base. Whatever he asked, I'd comply. Surprisingly, he let go just like that, without a minute's thought. He gave me a firm answer right away. Yet, for some reason, I felt a bit lost. I looked at the man before me and wondered if I was really ready to let go of the man who held me gently all this time. But I'd said it, and I was pregnant with Mark's baby. I knew there was no turning back. Luckily, I had Mark, who helped a lot with my company for years, managing everything. Took a lot off my plate. But it was this reason that during our later divorce, he took most of my assets without me noticing anything wrong. Strangely enough, after marrying Mark, I often dreamt about Felix. I went to our old house, which was empty. He sold it. Where is he now? What is he doing? Mark got busier and busier, to the point where I wouldn't see him once a month. Maybe that's what gave me more time to reminisce about the past. I didn't expect to see Felix again under those circumstances. I can't even describe my joy at that moment. I wanted to jump into his arms, wrap my arms around his waist like before, pressing my head against his chest, feeling his heart beat faster. But there was another woman standing next to him, and she seemed familiar. Then I remembered, she was a junior from their school club. I remember the way she looked at Felix with those eyes. I could tell right away. She definitely liked Felix. I didn't expect they would really end up together. Their hands were tightly intertwined, and the way he looked at her was filled with love. Jealousy was driving me crazy. So when my mom said those things, I didn't stop her. In my mind, I thought if she leaves him over it, that would be just fine. I didn't even consider whether I could be with him again after that. But he didn't just let it go. He got mad and blamed me. He warned me that if my mom said stuff like that again, he would put me on blast online. I didn't believe he would do that. He wouldn't dare. My mom took Lucy back to their villa. Lucy is my daughter. And I stumbled home lost. But when I got home, what did I find? Mark's suit jacket was casually thrown over the couch. Out of habit, I checked his pockets, thinking I'd get the maid to take it to the cleaners. And then, I found a sexy stocking in the pocket. In that instant, my blood rushed to my head, and my mind went blank. I felt like Felix must have felt after getting out of prison, opening the door to find me pregnant. It was like the sky had fallen. When I tossed that disgusting stocking at Mark's face, he calmly admitted he was involved with an intern from work. He said he wanted a divorce. He wouldn't fight for custody. The kid would be with me. So, after the divorce, I was a free woman again. I found out from a friend that Felix hadn't married. Do I still have a shot? I wanted to try. After jumping through a few hoops, I tracked down Felix's current work address. And there he was outside the office building. His skin was a bit tanned. Looking healthier, more maturely handsome, he seemed well and happy. He didn't drive, he rode a bicycle instead. A man in a suit on a bike didn't look out of place at all. My heart skipped a beat again. He was still the Felix from my younger days. I stood not too far from him, watching him bike up closer. His gaze landed on my face. He seemed shocked, stopping his bike, his long legs reaching the ground. The summer evening breeze tousled his hair while the sunset lit up his face, bringing back memories of all our times together. Even though I already knew the answer, I wanted to hear him reject me, say it out loud. I struggled to speak. Felix, can you give me another chance? Promise. But he didn't let me finish. He interrupted with a tilted smile. Daisy, go live a good life. What's past is past. I've let go of love and hate. He waved at me. So no goodbyes this time, just part ways here. Watching him ride off, I finally realized. I lost him for good. He'll never come back to me. I went back to my hometown. But right now, I couldn't care less about the company. I hired a professional manager to handle it. I'm like in a trance, unable to snap out of it. I regret making fake accounts back then. Even though the law didn't punish me, the guilt gnaws at my heart, leaving it in tatters. I wasn't punished because he loved me deeply back then. Now, not anymore. I heard Mark married that woman. I exposed his story on local social channels. Even if it meant tearing down the honor I once had, I wanted to make sure he couldn't stand proud here. I crashed their wedding. Mark got so mad he hit me, breaking my nose. After reporting it to the police, I got a medical report. He was criminally detained for intentional injury, eventually sentenced to 9 months. I sank into severe depression. Every day, thinking death was a relief. But seeing my mom's worn face and Lucy's innocent smile, I couldn't bring myself to end it all. The final straw was hearing about Felix's wedding. He was marrying the girl who chased him from college till now. My heart bled and ached, down to my bones. I often reminisced about the days we spent together, about the new year when I confessed to him, and how he almost cried from the emotion. But back in reality, seeing my cold home, tears just wouldn't stop. I dissolved the company, set up a will, and distributed my assets. Half went to my parents and Lucy, the other half to Felix. It's what I owe him. He probably won't take it, but whatever. If he wants to throw it away or donate it, that's up to him. I typed out a message to him, sending it to the account that had been on my WeChat list all those years but never contacted since he went to jail. Felix, I'm sorry. If there's a next life, I'll hold your hand tightly and stay with you till we're old. But all I got in return was the red exclamation mark. Enough, enough. It's his big day. I won't bring any bad luck. I drank a lot, hoping when the blade cuts into my skin, it wouldn't hurt as much. I slipped into the bathtub, pulled the plug. I didn't want my blood staining everything. Let the dirt flow right down the drain. My consciousness started to fade, and the world turned to nothingness. In my days, I saw a handsome young boy on that cold New Year's Eve, holding me close. He said, "Daisy, I'll love you forever." Unfortunately, this lifetime it's all my doing.